I never thought the day my wife went into labor would turn into a full-blown legal showdown right in our own living room. 1 minute Sarah was timing her contractions, breathing through the pain, and the next, the HOA president was standing in my doorway screaming about unauthorized medical procedures. 10 minutes later, flashing lights filled our driveway, and Karen, our almighty HOA queen, was the one getting escorted off the property in handcuffs. My name's Jake Morrison, and I live in Riverside Heights, one of those picture-perfect suburban communities that looks peaceful from the outside, but is ruled by an HOA that thinks they're the FBI. I'm a high school history teacher. My wife Sarah's a therapist. We picked this neighborhood because it looked quiet, family-friendly, perfect for raising our first baby. What we didn't know was that peace came with a price tag, and that price was named Karen Huntington. You couldn't miss her early 50s platinum blonde hair that never moved, always wearing a crisp white blazer and that cursed clipboard like it was a royal scepter. She ran the HOA like a small kingdom. Everyone feared her not because she had power, but because she believed she did. The trouble started the night Sarah went into labor. She was 39 weeks, and her contractions had started coming closer together. Her doctor had told us she'd probably do better laboring at home as long as possible. She gets anxious in hospitals, and we'd prepared everything: a birthing ball, sterile sheets, soft lights. The plan was simple. The baby comes, we go to the hospital if needed. Calm, quiet, safe. But apparently calm and quiet don't fit into Karen's version of community standards. Around 7 p.m., just as Sarah was breathing through another contraction, I heard this rapid-fire knocking on the front door, sharp, impatient, the kind that screams, "I don't care what's going on. I'm more important." I opened the door, and there she was, Karen. Clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, lips pursed like she smelled something rotten. "Mr. Morrison," she started, voice tight and self-satisfied, "are you aware that conducting medical activities in a residential property is a violation of HOA Code Section 4B? I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "My wife's in labor." Karen didn't even flinch. "Yes, well, you didn't submit a noise exemption form, and there have been complaints about ambulances being disruptive in the past. We simply can't allow medical traffic disturbing the neighborhood aesthetic." I thought I misheard her. I literally looked back at my wife in labor, and then back at this woman who was lecturing me about aesthetics. "Karen," I said slowly, "this is a medical emergency. You need to leave." But of course she didn't. She took a step inside, uninvited, scanning my living room like a building inspector. "This looks very unregulated," she muttered, raising her phone. "Are you even licensed to host a medical procedure here?" That's when she started taking pictures. Of my wife, of our equipment, of everything. Sarah's face went pale, her breathing shaky. I stepped in front of her, heart pounding. "Put that phone down, Karen." She smiled. "I'm documenting a violation. It's my duty as HOA president." I could feel my blood boiling. "It's your duty to get out of my house." She ignored me and started dialing someone. I could hear her saying words like illegal activity, home business, and community disruption. Meanwhile, my wife's contractions were getting worse. She was gripping the couch, whispering through the pain, and all I could think was, this woman is going to make something dangerous even worse. A few minutes later, 2 more people showed up, her little HOA sidekicks, Dan and Martha, clipboard-carrying minions. They stood on my porch whispering about potential fines while Karen barked into her phone. I heard her say, if they think they can just ignore HOA regulations, they're in for a surprise. I felt trapped, half furious, half terrified. What if all this noise and stress hurt Sarah or the baby? Should I just drive her to the hospital to get away from these lunatics? Maybe it wasn't worth fighting. Maybe she was right. Maybe we should have informed the HOA. For a second, I actually considered it. Then I looked at Sarah, sweating, crying, begging me not to move her, and something in me snapped back into place. No, this wasn't on us. This was on her. So I picked up my phone and called our doctor, Dr. Raymond Foster. "She's in labor," I said. "But we've got a situation. The HOA president just stormed in saying we can't have her deliver here." There was a long pause, and then he said flatly, "I'm on my way." 15 minutes later, he pulled up. And of course, Karen was still outside, standing in the driveway like a gatekeeper. She stepped right in front of him as he tried to enter. "You can't go in there," she said, raising her clipboard like it was the Constitution. "This residence isn't zoned for medical procedures." Dr. Foster stared at her for maybe 3 seconds, just enough to assess that he was dealing with a complete lunatic, then said, "Ma'am, step aside. You're obstructing medical care." Karen laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Oh, please, this is my neighborhood. I have authority here." That's when he took out his phone, dialed, and said, "Yes, dispatch. I have a non-compliant individual interfering with emergency medical care." The look on Karen's face was priceless, somewhere between shock and fury, but she didn't move. She doubled down, shouting something about calling the HOA board. And then, mid-yell, Sarah screamed the loudest, rawest sound I've ever heard from her. Everyone froze. I ran to her side. "It's okay, I'm here," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but my heart was slamming in my chest. Karen unbelievably started filming again. That was it. I lost it. "If you don't stop recording right now, I swear." But I didn't have to finish because flashing red and blue lights filled the front window. The cops arrived. One officer came through the door, calm but firm. "Ma'am, you need to step back." Karen spun around. "Officer, thank God you're here. These people are violating HOA policy, and this man is allowing an unlicensed medical." He cut her off. "Ma'am, I just need you to step outside." She refused. "You can't tell me to leave, this is my community." That's when Dr. Foster spoke up. "She's trespassing, officer. I'm the attending physician and she's interfering with medical care." It took both officers to guide Karen out the door while she shouted about lawsuits and donor rights. Her voice faded as the door shut. For the first time all night, the house was quiet except for Sarah's labored breathing. I knelt beside her, trembling. "It's okay," I whispered. "She's gone. She can't hurt us." Dr. Foster nodded, checked Sarah's vitals, and smiled gently. "She's strong. The baby's fine. Let's focus on that." Hours later, after everything calmed down and Sarah finally delivered our healthy baby girl at the hospital, I sat there in the recovery room trying to process what had just happened. It felt unreal, like a bad sitcom that went too far. But of course it wasn't over. 3 days later, I got a call from the HOA office. My stomach dropped when I saw the caller ID. I was ready for more threats. But instead, a calm voice said, "Mr. Morrison, this is Nancy Chen, legal counsel for Riverside Heights HOA. I'm calling regarding the incident with Mrs. Huntington." She sounded apologetic. That was new. She explained that the board had reviewed footage from Karen's body cam. Yes, she apparently had one, and confirmed she entered my property without consent, interfered with medical care, and harassed a resident during a medical emergency. In other words, she was screwed. The HOA voted unanimously to remove her as president, effective immediately. They also issued a formal apology to us, and here's the best part: they banned her from holding any future HOA office positions in the county. Apparently even her husband called the board afterward, mortified, saying he had no idea what she'd done and that she'd taken the HOA thing too far. Karen's so-called authority evaporated overnight. Her little minions stopped returning her calls. The community group chat, which she used to dominate with rules and citations, went silent on her. The HOA even filed a restraining order preventing her from contacting us or stepping onto our property again. But the real cherry on top, that $5,000 donation she bragged about, turns out it didn't buy her special privileges, just a plaque on a park bench. The board officially revoked that too. I saw her once more after all that at the mailbox a few weeks later. She looked smaller, somehow deflated. She wouldn't even make eye contact, just shuffled past with her sunglasses on, pretending not to see me. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Sometimes silence is louder than any revenge could be. People like Karen build their lives on power they don't actually have, and the moment someone calls their bluff, the whole empire collapses. She tried to control everything, even the birth of my child. And in the end, she lost control of everything that made her feel important. And as for me, I learned something simple but solid. When you stand up to people who think rules don't apply to them, you don't just protect yourself. You remind everyone else what real boundaries look like. Moral: entitlement can buy attention, but it can't buy respect.